Alright, sorry about the delay, guys. I mean, it's still over half an hour early, so I don't know why I'm apologizing. Alright. So... Oh god, this is from 2011. Ugh. Never reading that again. Okay. So. Quickly recap. Bert Weinstein. Implied a race realist stance in a email protest over a proposed walkout. That was, in an optically terrible decision, reversed, so they would request that white students not participate on campus. Whereas traditionally it would be black students assembling off campus in a day of absence. Resigned willfully as part of a settlement in which they won $500,000. The university admitted no wrongdoing. Accused the university of basically not taking necessary steps to protect its safety, however, also sent away security, telling them it was fine. This person was not forced out. This person, if anything, was objecting to the speech of somebody else, made a giant fuss about it, sued the university, and then left of their own volition. Christakis, husband and wife. Husband was master of one of the colleges. Objected to very reasonable suggestions to be mindful of messaging sent by offensive Halloween costuming to students. A suggestion, not an order. Effectively a letter saying, hey guys, maybe blackface isn't the best idea. They got into fights with students, verbal fights, just arguments, and then resigned to do academic work full-time. Resigned from the mastership of the college. They were still, as far as I'm aware, tenured academics. If somebody wants to provide clarity on that, that would be helpful. They were not forced out of the university. Bogosian we spent a bit of time on. Fraudulent stunt. Sent papers in bad faith. Resigned without any prompt by the university, or as far as I'm aware, by students. That was irrelevant. Ilya Shapiro. Georgetown University Law School. Center for the Constitution. Made unambiguously racist tweets about Biden's appointment of a black Supreme Court judge, if I'm not mistaken. Referring to her as inferior, or a lesser, black woman. Also resigned, apparently unprompted. Gordon Klein. Dismissive and aggressive reply to a student email during a national controversy, who had requested, I think, delaying an exam because of the George Floyd death. He is on leave from teaching at UCLA. Still employed as far as I'm aware. This was the This was the one case, so far at least, where somebody was suspended against their will, or put on leave, more accurately, not suspended. And it was for fairly gross, non-professional, and aggressive messaging to a student, not for denying the request. Greg Patton. These are additional ones submitted by other people. Suspended for teaching a very common Chinese word that sounds similar to the N-word. This one was entirely unjustified. It was basically just idiots not understanding that English isn't the only language, that there are words that sound like English words and mean different things and have completely different connotations in different languages. Looks like the administration had a hair-trigger response and suspended him unjustly based on some idiots reporting it. There was no contradiction with any ideological orthodoxy here. This was literally just an administration being thoughtless and too fast to act. Moreover, because if he had actually been saying the N-word in the context that we think of it, a conservative school would likely have had the same response. Joshua Katz may have had a scandalous relationship with a student/colleague, had some ridiculously overwritten issue with some letter or other by a student group. Nothing happened. Literally nothing happened. I don't know why this is here. Nothing happened at all. Stephen Sue is the interesting one. So this is the only case that we have, of all the ones presented here at least. This is what Destiny recommended me. And this was a list that was put together by people in Destiny's Reddit, I assume. Because of the conversation on progressive orthodoxy in the academy that we're going to have at some point. Stephen Sue is the only one who has actually been, let's say, pressured to resign, or forced to resign, or de facto forced to resign, because at least he says in the letter that he held his position at the pleasure of whoever it was, the president or whoever had the decision-making capacity there. We're going to go more into him later. But he has controversial positions on race and IQ. In the time between now and the last stream where we looked at this, I saw conversations between him and Stefan Molyneux that look really bad. He is essentially a eugenicist, but he's also a theoretical physicist. This is not in his wheelhouse, or at least it doesn't seem to be. Granted, it's not in mine either. So his resignation was requested, and he returned to a tenured faculty position and continues to contribute to science. So this person was not squeezed out of the university by progressive orthodoxy. However, he was he was asked to resign on essentially ideological grounds. Ones I happen to think are correct, but ideological grounds nonetheless. So that's that. We have Greg Patton, who was treated unfairly by an administration. There's nothing particularly progressive about any of it. He had no ideas that came to the fore in this matter that were counter to a progressive narrative. He was not suspended for countering a progressive narrative or not towing a progressive line. He was suspended because the administration reacted stupidly to an idiot saying that he said the N-word when in fact he said a Chinese word that sounded like it. And that's about that. And Sue, who was actually pressured to step down from a position because of an anti-eugenics stance that was taken by the university, I assume. Or by the students who complained, and by the appointer who asked him to leave his position. he had that position by that appointer's pleasure, and he would resign by that as well. Max, we'll talk to Kevin Bird later. We're gonna encounter Sue again. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. That's Sue, right? Like the H would be silent. It'd be Sue. I'll talk to him next week, or not next week. I'll talk to him when he's available. I've asked him to send some relevant materials if that would help. Next week we're going to start going into some of the literature on intelligence, on race and IQ, among other things. We'll eventually get there, because this seems to be the sticking point. Really, this is the one that actually got someone to resign on strictly ideological grounds. Thank you, Sirius. So Sirius has been really helpful in locating examples in documents. So he's got me 4 examples to the contrary for today that we're going to look at. By to the contrary, I mean progressives who were forced out for ideological reasons from their positions. Or otherwise oppressed or whatever, or silenced. Let's start pulling these up. Sorry if I'm a little squinty today. I was out in the sun and it just fried my brain. It's like, ugh, the screen's so bright. Okay. Well, you're going to show up or not? Come on. There we go. We'll start here with Eugene Gu. Center this a bit better. The doctor who went viral for taking a knee says he's now being punished by his hospital. Dr. Gu was placed on paid leave and then probation by Vanderbilt University Medical Center after a photo of him taking a knee went viral. The school told BuzzFeed News that these penalties were performance-based. Dr. Eugene Gu, a third-year resident at Vanderbilt University Medical Center in Nashville, drew national criticism. When is this from? 2018? Drew national criticism and praise after sharing a photo of himself taking a knee in September. I am an Asian doctor, and today I take the knee, hashtag to fight white supremacy. Amid the highly polarizing national debate over Colin Kaepernick and other NFL players taking a knee during the national anthem, Gu shared a photo of himself taking a knee to fight white supremacy. He tweeted, The tweet and gesture amassed over 50,000 retweets and inspired professionals in other fields to share photos of themselves taking a knee in solidarity. However, the viral moment also drew widespread backlash among conservatives who thought Gu was quote-unquote too privileged to speak out on this issue. It's not the first time Gu and his online activism have been cause for national controversy. He's suing President Trump for blocking him on Twitter, and in late 2016 he was subpoenaed by Congress after he became the first person to successfully implant the heart and kidney of a human fetus into a rat. Interesting. Interesting. Okay. I don't know. I don't understand that at all, but okay. Shortly after a BuzzFeed news article was published in 2017, I mean, it makes sense. You wouldn't want to... Why would he be subpoenaed by Congress for that? I guess because it was a fetus. I want to look. Hang on. What the hell? How House Republicans derailed a scientist whose research could save lives. Gu became the first person to successfully implant the heart and kidney of a human fetus into a rat. The organs actually grew inside the rat and sustained its life, a result that could have enormous implications for the treatment of life-threatening birth defects. I see. This is the 21st century. Instead of studying cells in a dish, like Louis Pasteur did, why don't we have a whole human heart? Gu said in a phone interview, his voice crackling with excitement. Having a whole organ working for you, beating, surviving, growing, that's really powerful in science. It has a potential to cure a lot of diseases. His ultimate goal is to transplant healthy fetal organs in utero to babies with fatal congenital diseases so they can survive to adulthood with fully functioning hearts and kidneys. He also hopes to grow human organs in animals that biomedical researchers could then use to help to develop cures for heart disease, the leading cause of death in the world. That's entirely respectable. So this is actually like ideological oppression of science, of a scientist. Okay, but let's go back to the example at hand. So, okay. So he takes a knee on Twitter. Shortly after a BuzzFeed news article was published in 2017 about his tweet, Gu said a whole avalanche of punitive actions were taken against him at his practice at Vanderbilt University Medical Center. First, he received a letter of warning from the University Medical Center about his social media use. I'd love to see that letter. Then in November, he was placed on paid administrative leave during an internal investigation after Gu reported that he was physically assaulted on VUMC premises. A letter discussing his leave was provided to BuzzFeed News. It noted that the action was taken for his personal safety, but Gu claims there was no active physical threat against him after the assault. 2 weeks later, Gu received a letter from VUMC stating that he was being placed on probation until March 2018. A copy of the probation letter provided to BuzzFeed News cited misleading characterizations of his assault that were shared on social media, and that his probation was escalated to corrective action so he could show improvement during the probation period. Gu said he believes his suspension and probation were actually due to a patient's mother calling him racist for his online activism. The woman refused to allow Gu to treat her son after seeing his viral post and then wrote a viral Facebook post of her own. Just to be clear, this is the mother who apparently kicked the doctor out for a tweet. I'm the mother that kicked him out of my son's room. He is absolutely lying when he says I angrily confronted him. You just said you kicked him out of the room. From several feet away, I read his badge and told him I needed him to leave. None of the other doctors in the room thought a thing of it or said a word about it. That's a little strange in and of itself. Not because he's Asian, but because he's using his time at work to further his agenda. We actually had 3 other races in the room at the time. Vanderbilt is a diverse hospital with many ethnic groups and races, and all the times we've been here, I've never seen or heard someone being called out about race. Now I'm terrified he's going to do something to Skylar's chart. Jesus Christ, what a nutball. Gu also claims the same woman had been harassing him on social media for his activism. She singled me out and said, "I want you out of the room now," he said. "It was shocking to do in front of so many people, but I thought, I'm going to leave, I don't want to cause a scene." The mother's Facebook posts and comments claim she complained about Gu to a director at VUMC after kicking him out, citing she was quote-unquote nervous about the care he would provide to her son. Gu said he didn't think too much of the incident until he matched the timing of that incident to when he was placed on administrative leave. Why isn't this a bioethical question rather than an ideological question? Well, it's an excellent question, Jay Grimes. What determines your ethical prescriptions around, biology, around like medical science and whatnot? Didn't fall from the sky. The mother thinks I'm racist toward white people, he said. She wrote emails to the chairman and publicly posted that on Facebook. I think that's the primary reason I was placed on leave. And given that the university was already disciplining him for that previously, that makes sense. However, a rep for VUMC claimed repeatedly to BuzzFeed News that Dr. Gu's punishments were all based on his performance as a medical professional. It seems like he's a cutting-edge doctor. Like, judging from the other thing we saw, it seems like he's actually doing, like, based on his performance. Okay. Well, what does this mean? All of VUMC's actions relating to Dr. Gu's progress as a surgery resident have been and will continue to be based on his performance and his adherence to VUMC policies, John Hauser, the Chief Communications Officer, said in a statement. Dr. Gu has never been told that he must change his political views. He has been advised of the need to adhere to VUMC's social media policy, which required that persons who are identified as representatives of VUMC clearly state their views are their own. VUMC declined to provide more detail about the performance issues that led to his leave and probation. Dr. Gu said his performance reviews as a surgery resident during his 3 years have been mixed. Okay. The timing is strange, but it's plausible. Let's see. The VUMC account initially tweeted a statement tagging Gu in the Duke Chronicle. They then deleted their initial tweet and issued another tweet that did not tag Gu. Updated statement regarding Duke Chronicle article about Duke graduate currently training as a surgical resident. What is this? Okay, it's a dead link. VUMC told BuzzFeed News their tweets were posted in response to inaccuracies included in an article written by a student journalist at Duke University. VUMC again declined to provide comment about Gu's performance-based penalties. As for performance-related matters, our practice is to not comment publicly, Hauser responded. Gu believes he's being singled out and targeted by VUMC, and people have been rallying behind his cause. Here's the thing, too. Like, this guy's had police at his door on ideological grounds for important medical research. Like, really important medical research that could save children. From the sounds of it, he's been fairly mistreated. I would kind of expect that to impact your performance, you know? But I don't know, there's no details here about it. In the latest in the ongoing saga, Vanderbilt University distanced themselves from the medical center in a tweet distinguishing their financially separate entities. Not acceptable. Say this person, Rhonda Bennett. Not acceptable. Shame on you, Vanderbilt Medical Center. Dr. Eugene is an amazing physician because he's an awesome man in person. First, of all the mess going on in the world, appreciate who's on your team. And he maintains they have an axe to grind against him, which is why he's on leave. Okay. Okay. As far as reconciliation, he said his arms are always open for an olive branch at any time. I'm not even asking for much. I am just asking to be treated fairly like every other resident in the program is treated. This is perfectly reasonable. So there are actually two things going on here. There's this one where he's actually being... We suspect he's being targeted on ideological grounds and is being punished for taking a position on a countrywide political issue. And then we have, more importantly, a history of him actually being persecuted in his capacity as a researcher, because it doesn't toe the right-wing conservative political line. And it appears as though the administration is sympathetic to that, or at the very least fears that more than the progressive one, insofar as it exists. No, we are not still looking. We've exhausted the Reddit post. There's nothing there. The only one is Sue, and he returned to a tenured position, so he's still in academia. He still has more or less everything that he had before, and that was on the grounds that he was a eugenicist who was making essentially science. What's the term? He's making racist statements about IQ and making them to men like Stefan Molyneux, of all people. So Eugene Gu. These are just the most egregious cases. I have 4. Eugene Gu. Persecuted for progressive. Politics plus research involving organ growth from fetuses, or from fetal tissue, I suppose. We'll come back to that one later. By the way, this isn't just like the university saying, hey, we don't want you, students are upset about this. Don't teach this in the classroom kind of thing. This was, look at this. Gu's research hit a snag in April this year when 2 armed United States Marshals banged on the door of his studio apartment at 10 a.m. Gu had been sleeping off an all-night trauma surgery shift at Vanderbilt Hospital. He had no idea why the police would be at his house, and he was afraid to let the marshals in. I know my rights, Gu told the marshals. I'm not going to open the door unless you have a warrant. We don't need a warrant, one of the men replied. This is a congressional subpoena. I guess we don't have details of what happened after they entered? But that's like actually terrorizing a doctor on anti-progressive grounds, essentially. To be fair, Stefan Molyneux in 2017 was more moderate. No, he wasn't. He absolutely was not. I know, I watched him. Oh, excuse me. Okay. A lot of these are from Fire. We're going to try to get other sources as well. This one was not. Eugene Gu is not. That was from BuzzFeed. But here we have. This is someone whose contract was not renewed. This is a history professor, assistant history professor, Garrett Felber. A public critic of Ole Miss. Ole Miss. Is that the... What is Ole Miss? University of Mississippi. I see. So that's what Ole Miss refers to. Yeah. So University of Mississippi, I don't know why they call it Ole Miss. This year he's on leave, completing a fellowship at Harvard University's Hutchinson Center for African and African American Research. The administration's notice letter cites Felber's reluctance to have a real-time conversation with his supervisor, but as fires Individual Rights Defense Program Director Adam Steinbog notes in our letter, Felber was being called to have that conversation to discuss his exercise of his First Amendment rights. Excuse me. Felber's non-renewal arose in the context of his public criticism. Indeed, his supervisor cited that public criticism as a basis for seeking to have a meeting with him. According to the university's non-renewal decision, necessarily arises from his protected expression. So here's something else you'll notice. By the way, you will not notice the reverse of this very often. One of the reasons why a lot of progressives being persecuted out of academia are underreported, besides the fact that, you know, the conservatives and the quote-unquote liberals who get persecuted out of academia, when you like dig a little bit, what actually happened was they left academia because they're like, despite being hey guys, we just think the university should be like a free exchange of ideas where people argue and come to the truth of things. As soon as somebody else argues against them, they do that thing you see in like organized sports where somebody gets tapped on the shoulder and they pretend to like collapse on the ground injured as if they've been stabbed. Help, I'm being oppressed! And then they do a media circuit and resign because there's more money in it. One of the reasons why you don't see that happen on the progressive side is A, they aren't as bitchy about it, and B, oftentimes they are simply kept out altogether because the administrations are not progressive. The universities put on a progressive front for the same reason that Vought does in The Boys. They don't give a fuck. They're run by people who were selected by people who were selected by people going way, way back to well before the 60s. And there are a lot of people in there who really don't like it all that much. Yeah, FIRE is a right liberal free speech think tank, so. Anyways. Felber's complaint is, my charges rejected a $42,000 grant from a major foundation we were awarded to support study struggle, a political education project on mass incarceration and immigrant detention. Sorry, that's a misread. Saying it's a political, not historical project and could jeopardize department funding. Think about that for a second. Political project on... Get off my screen. Political education project on mass incarceration and immigrant detention, saying it's a political, not historical project and could jeopardize department funding. Right there, that is a monetary incentive to... Stop it! I just want to stop underlining. I don't want to click on Twitter. That is a monetary incentive to toe the line. That's what that means. This anti-racist program threatens racist donor money, and racism is the brand. It's in the name. Yeah. This is how the vast majority of it goes. Sorry, I'm just reading this. So Felber's friction with the administration is related to his research and area of expertise, as listed in his official bio. 20th century African American social movements, black radicalism, and the carceral state. He's also the organizer of the Study and Struggle program, which seeks to educate community members and the public about the interrelationship between prison abolition and immigrant detention. Not detection, detention. In October, Felber tweeted that his chair had rejected a $42,000 grant. Oh, that's interesting. So they said this. So he claims that they said his chair had rejected a $42,000 grant to the Study and Struggle program, arguing that a political program could jeopardize department funding. That decision came 2 days after the university had publicized a $57,000 grant to the same program. Hang on, let me look at this. I'm always worried about Twitter because I don't want to accidentally open up a bunch of private conversations. I see. So the university publicized this. He also echoed a Study and Struggle coworker agreeing that is an arm of the state. It creates knowledge to legitimize state violence. It polices, it gentrifies, If they said that's why, I want to see a record of that. While many of the headlines and reports about Felber's case say that he was fired, that's not legally accurate. A non-renewal is not the same as a firing. As a non-tenured employee, Felber's work is contractual. That's something else too. Tenure is increasingly hard to get. So you don't see when people are squeezed out for ideological grounds like this. Because they can just quietly let them go. My old supervisor said he would never take a female grad student because he was too afraid of being Me Too'd, and he was open about it if the chair was fine with that. I've heard professors say that before. I know of a few that I worked with where that was actually there was a big deal about it. Interestingly enough, I know of at least one or two women's studies departments that were essentially established as part of a deal to not make life hell for certain professors who appeared to have had, or were accused of having, indiscretions with students. So. Oh, and incidentally, I have never had a, back in my Sargon days, and I was very combatively not left-wing, I never had a progressive professor tell me to leave the class, or to not come in, or refuse me a meeting to talk, or treat me with any level of disrespect or anything beneath professionality. And they were well within their rights to do so at a certain point. I mean, the students, on the other hand, were dicks, but then so was I. So they're arguing that he wanted to communicate through email and they wanted to communicate through Zoom meetings, and that was the reason for letting him go. Interesting. So look at this. Felber's non-renewal comes at a moment well explained by insider higher ed's Colleen Flaherty, in which the institution is facing multiple accusations of attempting to suppress critics who accuse it of turning a blind eye to racism. Among those controversies are that UM's ombudsman was put on administrative leave after he sued the university to avoid having to disclose information about confidential conversations, in order to determine who leaked documents suggesting that the university has tolerated racist comments from donors. Leaked documents, so these are there. Let's look. I am intrigued. Oh, he looks unhappy. The fabric is torn in Oxford. Oh boy. Quote, "God damn, this is literally like being in the Congo jungle," unquote. Prominent white Oxford, Mississippi real estate businessman and University of Mississippi athletics donor Blake Tart III said he was panning his phone's video camera around the corner of Courthouse Square and Van Buren Avenue, filming young African-American college students who were socializing after the University of Mississippi rebels suffered a devastating loss to the University of Alabama. The video. Oh, oh my god, he said this.
Got a video seriously and all the white people in the world. God, no. This is literally like being in the Congo jungle, guys. Check it out. There's some nice rushies over here. There's some cows right here in front of us. And there's a beamer. Beamer, man.
Hi. What's up?
Hey, girls. That's a beamer, dude. No, that's another one.
Okay. I think we get the idea. So that's the kind of person who is who's funding this university. In another controversy, Associate Professor of Sociology James Thomas was investigated by state auditors for having participated in a scholars' strike to protest racial injustice. UM has not commented on the investigation. In October 2018, Fire reported on Thomas receiving backlash from some state legislators after he tweeted about disrupting the meals of political opponents. Given these and other recent racial equity and transparency concerns, many are finding it hard to give the University of Mississippi the benefit of the doubt. So, plausible deniability. Who knows ultimately? But it's stronger than any of the cases we saw before, excepting Sue, but again, eugenicist. So this is Garrett Felber. And by the way, if the university has this attitude, then this likely replicates over and over and over again. And we just don't see it. Because it's happening to students, it's happening to grad students, it's happening to teachers and assistant teachers, and anybody without protections who just happens to go quietly for whatever reason. So, U of Mississippi, can I spell that? Yes, I can. Huzzah. Contract not renewed. strong possibility because of racist donors. This looks really bad. So his chair rejected a $42,000 grant to the Study and Struggle program 2 days after the university publicized a $57,000 grant to that program. Now he says, Garrett says, they rejected it, saying it's a political, not historical project and could jeopardize department funding. Let's, here, I'll tell you what, let me see if I can't pull that up without. Looks like a phone call. So there's no written record of it. It's frustrating. It's very frustrating. It's fine. All right. University of Kentucky. Dr. Raynor Mullins. Raynor Mullins. U of Kentucky. Let's get in the way. Okay. College of Dentistry filed suit against UK, University of Kentucky, not the United Kingdom, alleging that the university violated his First Amendment rights by retaliating against him after he criticized Kentucky Governor Matt Bevin's proposed Medicaid plan. Earlier this month, Mullins and UK settled the lawsuit for $620,000. June 22nd, 2016, Governor Bevin announced new changes to Kentucky's Medicaid plan called the Kentucky Health Waiver Proposal. They criticized it during the public 30-day comment period. Mullins made clear that he was speaking as a private person, not on behalf of the UK or the UK College of Dentistry. The complaint alleges that after Mullins submitted a comment, government, Bevin, and/or officials in administration communicated their displeasure with Dr. Mullins' comments and pressured defendant Birdwitzel, that's a hell of a name, to retaliate against Dr. Mullins. The complaint further alleges that when the academic year started again in September, the dean of the UK College of Dentistry, Stefanos Kirkinides, told Mullins that it was a bad idea to piss the governor off, and further warned Mullins that as a state employee, he works for the governor. As a faculty member of the College of Dentistry, works for the governor? What? What were his complaints? I don't get it. What were the complaints? Okay, I guess we gotta do work now. Brilliant. Okay, Governor Bevin, University of Kentucky. Gov Bevin, changes to Medicaid, Kentucky. All right, let's get an idea of what the hell we're looking at here. Oh, okay, so this reads that Governor Andy Beshear will not move forward with former Governor Matt Bevin's controversial changes to Kentucky's Medicaid program. This Medicaid waiver would have cost Kentucky money, lives, and jobs. I believe it would have saved us nothing. By every measure, Kentucky's decision to expand Medicaid in 2014 has been a huge success. He addressed proponents of Bevin's Medicaid changes. There will be some who argue that work requirements in the waiver would have encouraged people to get... Oh! He had work requirements for people to get Medicaid. The reality is the vast majority of people in expanded Medicaid already have one job, if not two jobs. For these people, their employer doesn't provide private insurance, and their income is low enough that they qualify for expanded Medicaid. The real way that we ultimately move people off of expanded Medicaid is through increasing wages for all Kentuckians. Bevin's signature health policy, which was never implemented because of court challenges, would have trimmed back some medical benefits and made it a little harder for some to keep coverage. Some Medicaid enrollees would have had to work, volunteer, and do other activities to keep their health insurance. Some would have had to make monthly payments to keep coverage, while others would have faced co-pays. Okay. That's definitely not a left-wing proposal. And this is using the arm of the state through the university to punish this guy. Alright, well... opposed governor's Medicaid rollbacks. What happened to him? What happened to him? Threatened. Pressured to silence. Claiming he works for the governor. Technically, yes, he does if he works for one of the state educational institutions. Yes, but he's still able to comment on like policy issues as a private citizen. And it says here that he was that he did so. He wasn't doing so in his capacity as a representative of the university. And it was during a public 30-day comment period, so there's no law saying he can't do this, as far as I'm aware. If there is one, that's kind of a problem, I think. See bottom of article. What am I looking for? Oh, here we go. If the allegations put forth by Mullins are true, it seems likely that the UK College of Dentistry retaliated against him after engaged in speech protected by the First Amendment. Mullins, a public health expert, submitted a formal comment to the government critical of a proposal that would, in his view, harm public health. Any adverse action taken by UK, whether or not it was at the behest of Governor Bevin or employees in his office because of Mullins' constitutionally protected expression to comment on matters of public concern, is a textbook violation. Yeah, but we know this already. This is not new. This is... Oh, here we go. It's not right at the end. Later in the academic year, Kirkinides directed departmental staff to not renew Mullins' faculty reappointment for the 2017-2018 year. And in January 27th. Oh, not rehired. Alright. Contract not renewed. Faculty appointment not renewed. Are you just going through recent cases or historical because there's a ton from the past? I'm going through relatively recent because we want it to bear on today, and I think within a 4-year span counts. 5-year span. Now it's 2022. We want it within range of the ones that were posted on Destiny's Reddit. And these are all American. Cases abound in Canada. There was a bit of a scandal about the Harper government silencing climate scientists for a little while. You DM'd me one massive one and one smallerish one. I'm not going to count this one, and not because it doesn't count, but because this one is too easily subsumed under like big business interests and not ideological ones. This one matters, but it's not particularly relevant to the discussion at hand. It's also not one that Destiny would disagree with. So this is more a neutral territory, if that makes sense. Let's see this one that Zuni has sent. Sorry, you'll just have to bear with the scaling of this. Wikipedia is terrible for streaming. Whatever. We'll shrink it. It's fine. Here, can I fit to screen? All right, that's fine. The Stephen Slatia hiring controversy was a 2010s controversy about an American professor who was quote-unquote unhired following a campaign by pro-Israel students, faculty, and donors who contended that his tweets protesting Israel's bombardment of Gaza were anti-Semitic. The unhiring sparked a debate about academic freedom in relation to the Israeli-Palestine conflict, social media, and the influence of The professor who was denied the job successfully litigated against the university and was awarded a settlement of $875,000, while the university's chancellor, Phyllis Wise, resigned. Bringing too many Germans. Okay. So in October 2013, he was offered the job with indefinite tenure, scheduled to begin in January 2014. He accepted, but to start in August. In July, the Gaza war broke out. And Salacia tweeted hundreds of tweets about the war during the summer. Among them, a handful were brought to the university's attention. You may be too refined to say it, but I am not. I wish all the fucking West Bank settlers would go missing. Yikes. Let's cut to the chase. If you're defending Israel right now, you're an awful human being. This is not a conflict between Israel and Hamas. It's a struggle by an indigenous people against colonial power. This is true. The logic of anti-Semitism deployed by Zionists, if applied in principle, would make pretty much everybody not a sociopathic anti-Semitic. That's also true. If it's anti-Semitic to deplore colonization, land theft, and child murder, then what choice does any person of conscience have? That's an ill-advised statement, but I agree, more or less. Zionists transforming anti-Semitism from something horrible into something honorable since 1948. I repeat, if you're defending Israel right now, then hopelessly brainwashed is your best prognosis. At this point, if Netanyahu appeared on TV with a necklace made from the teeth of Palestinian children, would anybody be surprised? Israel's bombardment of Gaza provides a necessary impetus to reflect on the genocides that accompanied the formation of the United States. So the ones that are going to get him into trouble here, here we go. In a statement following the vote by University of Illinois trustees, Salacia stated that he was disappointed the trustees had ignored the following less notorious tweet. I refuse to conceptualize Israel-Palestine as a Jewish-Arab acrimony. I am in solidarity with many Jews and in disagreement with many Arabs. Okay. The ones that I would think would get him into trouble, this statement here, I wish all the fucking West Bank settlers would go missing. If applied in principle, would make pretty much everybody not a sociopath anti-Semitic. If it's anti-Semitic to deplore colonization, what choice do you have? And this one here. Zionists transforming anti-Semitism from something horrible into something honorable since 1948. I get the impetus behind them. I agree with the sentiment, I'm fairly certain. They are so easily construed as something really bad by either really stupid people or really dishonest people. And that's the problem here. The problem with a lot of ones like this is it's like you can easily construe these statements as things that a non-conservative or even a non-pro-Israel administration would take issue with, even if they were taking it carefully. I don't think they would if they were taking it carefully, but you can construe it that way, so it's like... it's tricky, you know? The last one is really good. Like, this one. That's a really good line. So this is an unhiring. So they basically just closed off a hiring offer, is my understanding. Which they weren't really allowed to do because I think he had accepted. This one's the problem one. When he says, I wish all the fucking West Bank settlers would go missing. This is sort of like when Vosh said something about like he hopes they glass Israel or something like that. It's like, you get it. It's definitely not disproportionate to what Israel was doing to the Palestinians. But, like, good luck defending that one politically. Good luck. None of this is anti-Semitic. I've seen actually... yeah, I agree it's not anti-Semitic. The problem is that it's easily construed that way. So in the previous cases, we actually had just a one-sided thing where an administration or a state, through the administration, was actually penalizing people strictly on ideological grounds. By phrasing it in this way, he's provided them an alibi. So from my stance, trying to make this like an example used in a debate, this one is a little bit more rickety than the others because Destiny can go, yeah, well, he was saying stuff like all fucking West Bankers should go missing, and like that puts me in a bad position. That's very hard to defend. It's like, well, yeah, I can litigate the actual significance in the context of this, but as soon as you have to do those additional steps, you've already lost. This is one of the reasons why you have to be like super economical and only like hit with like the diamond hard cases. I know you found an academic who said almost exactly what Vosh said. That doesn't matter. That does not matter. That doesn't help us. If they say that, they're not being very smart. Because they're supplying their political opponents with exactly the tools they need to destroy them in advance of ever actually dealing with the things that they're saying. I saw the screenshot on the Discord series. It's okay. Alright, Andy, another example was sent to me. But barely any info. Okay, yeah, I don't really care about... Yeah. I mean, like, don't get me wrong, like, I agree that that's a case. Like, this guy was politically punished on ideological grounds, but he gave them... Meanwhile, Palestinians are actually being bombed in their residential areas, but that's what that reads like. That's not what you're up against. And politically, it's an untenable position. You've lost. And you've lost this fight anyways. I'm glad he won a settlement of $875,000, but... Man. Like, it looks like he won, ultimately, which is good. More or less. Except he didn't get his job back, did he? And it looks like an additional issue here is that he wasn't afforded due process rights of a tenured faculty member. Okay. Okay, so I see. So as part of the settlement, it was agreed that Salacia would not join the university faculty. So this is a commensurate case with the Weinstein one. Salacia made spicy tweets about Israel bombing Gaza. Remained unhired as part of settlement. This is the weakest one so far, just because, again, there's that alibi, but it still counts. And it looks like he won, so we do have the verdicts of third parties to ratify this one. Salacia, not you're spelling it out. I can't pronounce it. How do you pronounce it? Well, what is he? It'd be Salacia, no? Salaita. Am I wrong? Should I send you the one where the professor wouldn't write a letter of recommendation for a student who wanted to study in Israel? Sure, but again, it's the same problem. It's too messy. Because again, like what we're looking for isn't We're not looking for people having a knee-jerk reaction to things. We're looking for people who have like a specific ideological objection to things. And we seem to in this case. It's clouded by the fact that in a lot of cases, the ideological objection is also one between a professor or an academic and state power. Which, I mean, makes sense because when you look at all of the instances so far that we have seen of progressives forcing conservatives and liberals to do big media stunts and retire of their own volition, it's students acting by themselves, talking to them. They can't handle students talking to them. These grand free speech advocates. The universities are becoming closed-minded places. Somebody talks to them without total deference. Ugh, I can't do it anymore. Didn't Salacia end up driving buses instead of teaching? That'd be... Why would he end up driving buses? He was awarded close to $1 million as a settlement. That doesn't make any sense. Well, let's see. There's got a few hiring controversies by the sound of it. Stephen Salacia has since left academia with no plans to turn back. Oh, because he is driving buses. He's like, is there good money in that? Like, why would he do that? All right. I mean, that's a weird decision. We got 4 strong cases. The weakest case is stronger than the Weinstein one, but it's of a similar kind. Except he was actually pressured to leave. He didn't sue the university and then resign as a part of a settlement. He was already unhired, then sued the university and agreed to not work with them as a part of a settlement. Every other case is clear cut. Destiny has sued the eugenicist. Every other person resigned of their own volition after engaging in grossly dishonest stunts. In the case of Weinstein, Klein, Christakis. They were either not squeezed out, engaged in grossly unprofessional behavior, or engaged in obviously racist behavior. And only one of them was placed on leave. Oh, Ilya Shapiro as well, racist tweets. Gordon Klein on leave from teaching. He's still there. He's just on leave. I mean, Bogo's the biggest... Bogo. I'm calling him Bogo now. Bogosian is the biggest... Sorry, somebody typed Bogo in the chat. I hope that doesn't mean anything. Bogosian is the most obnoxious of the lot, because he's the one who is so clearly grifting from the start. And he's also like a 10-year assistant philosophy professor who is less sophisticated philosophically than your average undergraduate in, I don't know, technical writing? What's strange is that I'd assume Destiny would go for something like a defense of Kathleen Stock because it doesn't like TRAs. Kathleen Stock. Oh, she's a turf. Got it. Or is she a turf? Hang on, hang on. She opposed transgender self-identification in regards to proposed reforms in the 2004 UK Gender Recognition Act. She said that many trans women are still males with male genitalia, and they should not be in places where females undress or sleep in a completely unrestricted way. Yeah, turf. Soft turf. Okay. I mean, if he... That's one to keep in mind, I suppose, but it doesn't particularly matter. It's like... Was she, So this was in... This is in 2014. No, sorry, this was in 2018. Proposed reforms. Here, let me pull this up so you can see what I'm looking at here. God, I hate Wikipedia. I don't know why it needs to be so wide. Is there a way to change the the scaling on this? Whatever. So this is in 2018. She was appointed as a trustee of the LGB. Okay, yeah. So very turfy. Where is she now? Institutions, University of Sussex. Resignation. Okay. So she wrote a book, Material Girls, Why Reality Matters for Feminism. Lovely. And she opposes, according to The Guardian, that how you identify automatically confers all the entitlements of that sex. She describes the law that gives trans people the right to change gender as a legal fiction, a kind of useful untruth. She then joined the LGB Alliance as a trustee. Campaign in October for her to be fired by students. They criticized her for being a trustee of the LGB Alliance, of course. Stock herself said universities aren't places where students should just expect to hear their own thoughts reflected back at them. Arguments should be met with by arguments and evidence by evidence, not intimidation or aggression. She said that months previously she had complained to the University of Sussex, alleging it had failed to protect her and to safeguard her academic freedom. How? I'm seeing police are advising her to take precautions for her safety, including installing cameras and using bodyguards on campus, but why? I'm not seeing any indication that she was under threat. Oxford historian Selena Todd described Tickle's statement as paying lip service to academic freedom while assuring students of the university's inclusivity, and criticized the university and college union for their silence. The Times published a letter in support of Stock from a group of trans people, saying that they were appalled about trans rights are being used to excuse an unprincipled campaign of harassment and abuse. What campaign of harassment and abuse? I need to see this. Yeah, there's no evidence here of harassment or of threats. I was look, they cite one here, right? So this is when police advised her to take precautions for her safety. A statement on Instagram said it was from an anonymous, unaffiliated group of queer, trans, non-binary students who will not allow our community to be slandered and harmed by someone whose salary comes from our pockets. That's not a threat. There's nothing here. There's nothing here at all. Look at this. Stock was appointed Officer of the Order of the British Empire. 2021. This is same year. I don't know if it was after or before. Same year that she must have been just before, but same year that she was appointed as a trustee of the LGB Alliance. In response, over 600 academics signed a letter criticizing the government's decision. This is the government is ratifying this person, criticizing the government's decision and expressing concern about a tendency to mistake transphobic fear-mongering for valuable scholarship and attacks on already marginalized people for courageous exercises of free speech, unquote. Stock responded that the content of the letter was ridiculous, saying, "They accused me of completely wild things, like supporting patriarchy and preventing transgender people from accessing medical care, even though I have not said anything about it, except when it comes to children." Here's the problem, though. Up here, she says this. The institution... Sorry. In the book, Stock supports protective laws for trans people, but opposes, according to The Guardian, we'll follow this link in a second. These are in quotes, I'm assuming they're direct quotes, but we'll go with that. But opposes, according to The Guardian, the institutionalization of the idea that gender identity is all that matters, that how you identify automatically confers all the entitlements of that sex. So, for example, if you were a trans woman, one of those entitlements might be to see a doctor and have them treat you in some capacity as a woman. Or vice versa, as a man. Or, and this is where it gets really hairy, to curate your treatments so that you can do things like still have children and transition. What's the strat for this debate? That's an excellent question. We'll have to be smart about it because I mean, look, there's a couple of possibilities here, right? That's a very interesting question. So there's a couple of possibilities. The data Destiny sent me as a prompt doesn't do anything in favor of his position. Like, nothing. Nothing at all. Not unless he wants to start taking a pro-eugenic stance, because that's going to be very difficult to defend. Which is one of the reasons why I'm going to start looking into intelligence next week, because I think, like, that's the one area where there's actually, like, an actual substantive orthodoxy against the stance taken by the persecuted professor. Now, I think it's just, but we can litigate that later. So, one of two possibilities. The first and the most likely is that no attention is paid whatsoever to what we've looked through, and he just, repeats what was on the Reddit post. That's the lazy option, and it's possible. I'm not going to assume that he's going to do that. I think that would be a mistake. If he does, then my work's cut out for me. This is easy. Alternatively, he comes completely out of left field with something I haven't anticipated. So we're going to have to think hard about that. Are there other avenues of approach? Is there something we haven't considered? And that's not just strategic. If that's the case, then we want to know about that, so that we aren't taking an erroneous stance. I don't think we are, but if there's an angle of approach that's viable, I want to know about it. So, I think going forward, what we want to do for the next little bit until this happens is we want to be brainstorming the best arguments in favor of there being a progressive orthodoxy on campus, and we want to construe this in as many ways as possible so we can anticipate, because again, he hasn't construed this yet. We don't know what is meant by a progressive orthodoxy, because every example given in this list, it's for a different reason. And these people aren't pushed out by some common force. They resign. Or they commit something that would run afoul of people of all descriptions. So, you could just ask him what the contours of the discussion debate would be. Yeah, I could. What I'm going to do is I'm going to ask him, like, where he's at. Because if he's ready to go, then I would anticipate that he's running off of the Reddit post. In which case, this becomes very easy. I just need to organize this and have it all to hand. If he's not, then things get interesting. I think he's been asking his audience for personal stories about woke culture on campus, but as students, who fucking cares about that? That doesn't matter. I'm sorry, well, what's your evidence for there being a progressive orthodoxy persecuting people on campus? Well, I know a guy. It's not all that compelling. Think about it tonight. There's no rush. And ideally, I would like to do the Intelligence Week first, because I want to get the contours of that. Because that's one area where there actually is a specific friction between the, a particular ethic that's at the very least observed to be largely entrenched in most universities, at the very least nominally, and, a popular approach to a scientific object of study. anyways, that's that. So we'll continue to collect examples in both sides. I would like to have, if there are better examples than what the Reddit post showed, I want to see those. Because the examples in the Reddit post are not good. So if he's relying on that, we basically went out the gate. I'm not satisfied by that. I want to know if we can find something better, because I don't think the people who assembled that list were paying very close attention. I think my audience would pay better attention to like the details. What is intelligence and why are we looking into it? That's going to be a question we're going to ask. But primarily because I'm going to be covering some stuff in the near future on that subject. And Stephen Sue is the one example of an academic who was in fact made to resign from a position, not from academia, but from a position. An honorary position or something like that. I'll have to get the particulars down in memory. But the one example of somebody was on the grounds that he was making eugenic statements about race and IQ. Or about race and, life outcomes or things like that. Looking forward to the intelligence streams. Would you be interested in being sent any relevant sources on that issue? Absolutely. For the IQ stuff, the latest discourse has been around Catherine Page Harden. Okay, that's useful. Sean's vid on the bell curve was very good. I watched that multiple times. Yeah. Hi, Aiko. How you doing? Alright, let's see, how long we've been going for? Close to 2 hours. I'm fine if we cut this one short. I cooked myself outside today. I may stream later tonight, we'll see what's going on. And I might bump tomorrow's announcement for the contest stream to a couple days from now, just because I switched computers, and I lost some of the documents. So I still have them, I just need to find them. So, yeah, Stephen Jay Gould's book is great. I have it right here. It's very thorough. Yeah, thanks, Charles. I'll look at those. Can I get a link to the Reddit post you talked about? I'll put a link in the description of this stream. All right, let's call it for now, guys. Have a good night. Since I'm calling it now, I should put on ads and make money. Yeah. Oh wait, that's the wrong button. Close. There we go. Aha! Alright, take care, everyone. Have a good night.